Show with Richard Serring from Zoomer Radio, AM 740.
And welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Come on in, weary traveler. Hang your cloak on a peg, grab a stool, and come gather around the fire. There are stories to be told, and you are among friends. Carlos Cagina is our technical producer. Ryan White is our live stream producer. And be sure to check out my YouTube and Rumble channels, Strange Planet. That way you can watch me on the radio. Coming up in the second hour, Skunk Apes, Little People, and Underground Bases with journalist Mary Joyce. She's the founder and editor-in-chief at skyships.overcashiers.com, a website dedicated to curating stories of high strangeness. This hour, UFO and paranormal investigator, author Preston Dennett returns to the program, along with special guest Dolly Safran. Dolly and her incredible story are the subject of Preston's new book, Symmetry, a true UFO adventure, which chronicles Dolly's lifelong experiences with the gray aliens. Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986, when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic unexplained encounters. Since then, he's interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He's a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 29 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books have been Amazon UFO bestsellers. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Phenomena Magazine, Mysteries Magazine, Ufologist, and others. His writing has been translated into several different languages, including German, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Icelandic. Preston Dennett, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Richard?
Terrific, thank you. You know, if you continue to write books, it's going to take me an hour just to read your biography.
I know. I've got to stop. Somebody stop me.
No. Don't do that. Keep them coming. Let's say hello to Dolly Safran. Has worked as a limo driver, assistant manager at Wendy's, a zookeeper, a bus driver, a security guard, a nurse, and more, including as a civilian worker for the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and also in the Army as an employee for the U.S. Department of Defense. Her UFO contacts began around age 1 and are still ongoing today. Dolly, welcome to you. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Dolly, if I could. And I just want you to give us kind of a quick overview of what happened on, one evening back in January of 1973 when you were living near the Florida Everglades.
I was out with my telescope, and it was about 1 a.m. My dad said, go to bed. So I packed down, went in the house, got ready for bed. I don't sleep a lot, so I was looking out my window and looking up, and Orion was up that night. And I just started to see 100 lights that I didn't recognize as anything. And they were moving around, and they all paired up. They all went in different directions, east, west, north, and south. And I realized that, oh my God, this is my chance. I've been waiting for an opportunity to prove or disprove my insanity or not, because of everything that I knew in life. And this was it in my mind. I started watching them come down from outer space. They went from white to a golden orange color, and they kept changing colors until they got down over the house. The last color before I saw metallic was bluish, and I saw it swaying and bobbing, and the trees behind the house were moving around wildly, in the shock. I was like, this is perfect. And I start memorizing the craft I'm looking at. I know it's not ours. And I'm thinking, okay, every inch of it, memorize it now. And so I started from the bottom and I worked my way up. When I got to the portholes, I realized that there were two beings looking out at me. I mean, eye to eye. And it freaked me at that point. And I thought, we're done. And I turned to get away from it. I was going to dive under my bed, and I froze. My whole room exploded in blue-white light. I went out. No memory after that. Woke up on my floor about 3 hours later with nobody's clothes on that I knew, and could hear my mom in the kitchen. I got a shower, got dressed into my own clothes, went in the kitchen and made coffee for her. She asked me to. I started trying to ask her questions. Mom, did you guys see lights last night? Did you hear anything weirdness going on? And she turned around, put her finger on my face and said, no, which meant shut up. And I was sitting there at the table, and I actually drank my first cup of coffee ever. I was weirding out. And the radio was on. It was on Paul Harvey. And all of a sudden the news came on. And the first thing out of the guy's mouth was, 2 Dadeland police officers saw UFOs last night, and described the whole thing. I became extremely hysterical. I was happy. Like, oh my God, this is confirmation. I've been waiting for this. And my mother whirled on me again and said, get out of the kitchen. She hated me talking about this stuff. My father was walking into the kitchen as I was going out, and he said, get calm. You're fine. It's okay. Go in the bathroom, meditate. I come from a really intelligent bunch of people, and I was already learning to meditate by then, and my dad said, just go meditate. So I took myself in the bathroom, the only private room in the whole bloody house, locked the door, turned the light out, sat on the floor, and went through the recall. I was from the beginning of it all the way through, and I was doing it step by step by step. And suddenly I was able to recall what happened to me after the light burst. And pretty much a ribbon, like an energy ribbon, came down through the light, and a being came down the ribbon and took me by the hand, which I wasn't fighting, and took me up. Amazingly, I became weightless, and he was taking me up this ribbon. They had the door to the craft open, and they shoved me in. And that was a little weird because I didn't know what was in that open door. And I hit the deck, and it just went from there. That was a big day.
There's the understatement of the century. That was a big day. So your memory, the details that you just related, Dolly, listening to Paul Harvey, and people of a certain vintage certainly remember Paul Harvey, and now you know the rest of the story, and having your first cup of coffee, the way that your mother put her finger on your forehead, basically telling you to be quiet. It's remarkable because most people who have an encounter like this, they're so traumatized, they suppress it. It's only they're only able to recover that memory through hypnosis often, but not you. Why? You're what you call a conscious contactee, right? Why are you different in that regard, do you suppose?
Well, back then I was clueless. I didn't know yet. But as I've gotten older and been through many things with them, I realized that they pretty much bred me for this. My family is closely watched. My father was a contactee, and before, they know my entire family line. And I think that they were hoping that I would fulfill, what they were looking for me to do. And apparently I did, because I stayed pretty conscious. I have a really good memory. I have an eidetic memory, and some other strange things about me. And I don't sleep. I sleep 2 hours a day, tops.
Even to this day, you sleep 2 hours a day.
Yeah, unless I'm sick, then I go out of my way to try to go down, so I heal. But no, I only sleep 2 hours a day.
That's remarkable. So we'll get into the other experiences in a moment, but I want to bring Preston Dennett onto the program again, the author of Symmetry, a true UFO adventure. Preston, how did you first hear about Dolly's story, and how did the two of you get together?
Oh, this is actually really interesting and a bit mind-boggling. She contacted me in 2016, and Dolly had been thinking about going public for some time because she had quite a story to tell. She knew it was important, and she saw how UFO contact was being largely misrepresented in the media. There's a lot of fear surrounding it. That's not her experience. So she was talking to her ET contacts, the Greys, and getting advice from them. Like, I want to go forward. And they said, okay, this is going to be a big deal, but we support you. And just go find a good researcher that you can tell your story to. And so she started looking at various researchers and wasn't happy with some of them. And they told her, just keep looking, you'll find the person you're looking for. And she wasn't finding them. And they said, well, we want you to look up a gentleman by the name of Preston Bennett. So actually, I was referred by the Greys to Dolly by name, which may sound crazy, but that's happened to me previously.
Is that right?
Yes, I had a guy from England, same darn thing. The Greys told him, call a gentleman by the name of Preston Bennett. Look him up. We want you to talk to him. And this is what they told Dolly. So, boy, that's humbling to me. And really, wow, the Greys know me.
Dolly, were you familiar with Preston Dennett before you were told by the Greys to contact Preston Dennett?
No, not at all. I had no idea who he was. They said that he had YouTube videos, and look on there and see if I could find one. And I like to know everything there is to know, so I went into this playlist and went way back. I wanted to see some of his first videos, and I figured that would tell me the beginning of what I think about him, And I caught up with when he was at a MUFON symposium of some sort, and he was talking about healing, ET healings, and I watched the whole thing, and I was stricken by the fact that he's very thorough. He's very precise. He gives. He's very capable of repeating details in order, and his knowledge base was incredible. And I was like, okay, I'm impressed. And I sent him an email, and he contacted me right away. I mean, right away, like within a day. And I thought, okay. And we started phoning after that, I guess about a week later, maybe. And next thing I know, it's on. I started trusting him. I started realizing that he didn't play games. He didn't embellish on anything I was telling him. He wanted to know the straight facts. He was asking intelligent questions, and so I was quite happy with the fact that they put me on him. This was probably since 2016 this happened, so it took a while.
And then you just told it just came up, it poured out of you, and you put this together in book form, Preston. Is that pretty much how it happened? I was getting a kidney transplant when I met him. I was on dialysis, and my husband tried to do away with me. And so it took me about 8 months, 9 months, maybe, a year to get really comfortable with him. So I only told him the beginning story of my life. Okay. Just enough to see how he was going to react to it. I'm very careful. And so he put it in a book on board UFO encounters. And when I read it, I was like, oh, this is good. Once I made it past my transplant, just sort of went from there. And he started really interviewing me. He was putting me on tape. And it took a long time, And I realized that he was
literally
ready
did
to
hundreds of hours of interviews.
Hundreds of hours.
Yes. I mean, we talked really for a very long time. Her story is extensive. I'm telling you, Richard, I've interviewed a lot of people, and I can say with confidence that Dolly's story is the most extensive and complicated case of UFO contact I've ever researched and really even read about. I mean, you may have heard of Jim Sparks.
Yes.
Very extensive case, Betty Andreasen.
Yeah.
But Dolly has, some 60 years of fully, well, not 60, I guess it would be 50-some years of fully conscious contact, or slightly less than that, but, decades and decades of being contacted. I think it was over 100 times a year. Isn't that correct, Dolly?
Yes. Easily.
You've been taken on board, or you've had contact with the Greys on average 100 times every year since what? You were going back before this encounter in 73, all the way back to when you were 1 year old. Is that right?
Waking up. It began then. I told them I wanted to fly. My training began, so probably about the age of 15 on, it was easily 100 times a year more in the beginning because I was training to fly. It took me till I was 19 before I actually had my first solo flight.
Okay, we'll get into that too. But do you remember every single encounter since you were, say, 15?
Yes.
And does it happen? Okay, so every couple of nights. Is that why you sleep only 2 hours a day?
Pretty much, I think so. I'm very conscious. When you're psychic, wide open psychic, you really don't need as much sleep, I think, than somebody who isn't. I'm aware of everything all the time. My higher consciousness, my astral mind, is very linked up with me, and it travels around. I'm able to travel around, remote view, OBE, that sort of thing from a very early age, and I think that's why I don't sleep as much.
Is that a result of your interaction with the Greys, or is that a separate gift that you have, or is it a result of the interaction with the aliens?
I was born seriously psychic, so I think it has more to do with my psychic connection than it does anything else.
And is that why they chose you, because of your psychic abilities?
Yes.
Yeah, but this speaks to why they follow family lines, because this is something that they've been sort of encouraging in people. So I think it kind of goes both ways. And it's definitely a pattern I see with contactees. As a general rule, they're profoundly psychic and have a wide variety of paranormal experiences.
So at a certain point, Dolly, they asked you, is there anything that you'd like to learn? And you mentioned immediately, this would be the first thing I'd say, I want to learn how to fly one of these things. So when did that training begin?
Literally right after I was 14 and a half. And I had, my memory of my youth started coming back to me. There's a tall gray that is with me all the time. Her name is Mama. And when I'm up with them, Mama is present with me. She is my liaison facilitator. She takes care of me. She helped me to regain what I hadn't remembered. I started connecting all the dots. I've had memories since I was about 10 months old, but they were not cohesive. They were dreamlike. This is how I knew that I needed to be conscious. I thought I was crazy for a while. I thought, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And that's why I tried so hard to become aware, conscious, and fought for it. So my memories of my childhood started coming into me, and I've been trained most of my life by them. I started going to school with them when I was about 6 years old. They were taking me quite a bit and having me go to school, and they were keeping me with other kids who were like me. They were giving me information. They were taking me places and showing me. It was just a full-on education by them. I needed to know a lot for whatever I ended up doing with them, and so it began early with me. And
how do you fly one of those things? Is it done with the mind? Is there a control panel?
Yes. The ship is alive. It is indwelt by an interdimensional entity who indwells on board the craft and actually becomes one with the craft. It becomes a biological entity in that the craft becomes its body, and his body, I'm going to say his. He has a name. My flyer is, I nicknamed him. His name is too hard for me to pronounce. His name is Talada, and it's part of his name. It's a little piece of it, so he lets me get away with calling him that. I'm psychic as well, and we join psychic force together in an interdimensional electromagnetic field that lets our consciousness go into it at the same time, and we meld, and we fly together. I pilot, and he runs every other system on the craft. Their crafts are nothing like you would possibly imagine. Bob Lazar tried to explain it. He did a really good job. There is no connected wires. There are no panels with switches on them. There are no drivable pieces. Although I was given a physical way to pilot before I learned to link, and It was very rudimentary, just to give me a taste. Before that, other people are given that chance too. Other contactees, when they're brought on board, are asked, "Do you want to sit in the pilot seat? Do you want to give it a go? You want to try it out? You want to see how it feels?" And there's a reason for that. And they pretty much are looking for us to be brought up and become quite aware and understand what's going on around us right now. And we're trained for certain missions that are coming up in the future.
Where did you go the first time you took command of the vessel? Where did you go?
I went to Saturn. It was very, very cool. We went up to the rings. We sat back of them and looked at them, and he took me above them and below them, and then we went around the planet, and we started looking at the moons, and I was learning the topography of the rings. It's really important there for them to know that each section of the rings is a different composition. Some are big rocks, some are, some of it's frozen water, some of it's, crystals of ice all joined up together. There's heavy, serious dust, plasma dust in those rings. There's all kinds of things. And there are a few places where you can fly through them without hurting yourself.
Dolly's got to jump in here. Pardon the interruption. Preston Dennett, Dolly Safran will be back in a moment. More of our conversation on this remarkable, true UFO adventure. Stay with us.
Peering into the shadows, where the truth often hides. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard.
Have you subscribed to my newsletter yet? It's fast, easy, and absolutely free. Just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca, and then click on subscribe. All I need is your email address, and that's it. Then, once a month, you'll receive my newsletter, Inner Sanctum, in your email inbox. The Inner Sanctum contains a monthly brief, a column of my analysis of the news and opinions. There's a This Month in UFO or Conspiracy History, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of this radio program, a book club, my podcast pick of the month, a spotlight on a previous guest, and much more. Join the Strange Planet community by signing up for your free subscription to Inner Sanctum. Again, go to strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca, and click on subscribe. It's a strange planet. Read all about it.
Welcome back to Richard Syrett's Strange Planet.
Happy tastes good. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
And we are back with Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran talking about her remarkable story, lifelong relationship with gray aliens. The book is called Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure. And this is probably going to sound a little self-indulgent, but whatever. I got to ask you, because you're in regular contact with Grays, Dolly, and they were the ones who put you on to Preston Dennett, suggested that he write this story for you. Did you get, I don't know, approval from the Grays or to come on this program tonight? I mean, did they kind of consult you in all media matters?
I'm actually glad I brought you guys up, and I asked Preston if he had contacted you or not, and he didn't know. He puts a lot of information out, and so he said he'd check, and I think that was about 2 weeks ago. So apparently he did get in contact with y'all. And yes, Talata knows who Coast to Coast is. And you. All
right. Yeah, well, that's another show. We're going to do Coast to Coast together as well. But okay, terrific. They know Coast to Coast. So we were talking about. Let me just get back to Preston here for a moment. You said this is the most sort of comprehensive, detailed, complex subject you've ever dealt with, or contactee that you've ever encountered. What makes Dolly's story particularly so different, compelling than others? And after writing 29 books and speaking to hundreds of witnesses, give me a few examples of what makes Dolly's story so different and compelling, Preston.
Well, there's two main things. Because I will say much of what she's told me I have heard from other people. And I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Jay Gardner. He, as a young man, was also picked up by the ETs and taken to see Saturn. I've heard this before. I've heard many people describe how the ships are fully conscious, living beings in and among themselves. What makes Dolly's story different is a few things. One, she's not looking at her experiences through the lens of fear, which is very common among the people I talk to, especially in the beginning stages. Many of them do move past it at some point. And another thing is Dolly doesn't have the problem of amnesia or missing time, which even among people who are having a lot of contact still does occur. So those are two main things. Much of what she said I've heard piecemeal from other people, but she sort of has a continuous narrative. She's connecting the dots, filling in all the blank spaces, and does have some absolutely unique experiences. And I've talked to people who've been taken to other planets, but Dolly's able to describe this experience in great detail, or being taken onto mother ships and seeing arboretums or animal husbandry centers or healing centers or, hangars filled with craft. All this stuff I've heard before, but Dolly has the detail, and she's able to describe it in a way that it's objective and not, fear-based, which is a huge deal.
Dolly, did they take you back to their home planet for your schooling, or were you always just on board this particular craft flying around like our solar system?
I went to the Tall Grays homeworld, yes. It's in the Orion cluster. And it's a pretty big planet, and it's in the sweet spot. Has less gravity than we do. We're very gravity heavy here, and it's not polluted. And they have trees that are ginormous. I mean, we have some, I call them skeletal remains of a few trees here that go to that. Dell's Tower was a tree. It's like the stump of a tree there. That's how big they are. There's a few more examples in Mexico and around the world, and they were that big. They are that big. And I had a school. It was like a portico that surrounded the tree, and it was open to the sky, but it lipped over on the sides. And when I went, the building that I was in the tree was mostly only female children, and then there was another tree further down from us that they only did boys. And I went there. I still go there from time to time just to hang out or whatever. They have huge complexes on the ground as well, and quarters where you can sleep, and they have a huge metropolis of people there living. So yeah, that is their homeworld, and that is where I went mostly. I went to a few other places. They would take me on field, excursions, field trips, I guess you would think of them as, and I did other things as well.
And how long are you missing for on any given trip? Are you studying on this planet for days or weeks or months?
Sometimes weeks, and I think the longest I've been out is probably about a month. That was flight training, and they always bring me back within minutes after I was taken. They have the ability to go back through time a little bit and bring you to your starting point and leave you off. So there's
that was my next question, because when you were living at home with your parents, and if you obviously you weren't missing for months as far as they were concerned, they were still there. So they have this ability to go back in time.
Yes. Bring us back in time. I'm not visiting. I don't go back to just before I leave. I come back right after I'm gone, so that I'm not running into myself or in what they call dead air. It's complicated. You can interact with the past in that you can see it. It can almost see you. It just depends on what era you're going into, but you can't really have anything to do with it. You just walk among it, The future is way different than that. They can view the future as well. There is no timeline out. There's no space-time when they're out and about interdimensionally. It just doesn't exist. So they can pretty much do anything they want.
When we hear about, typically, when we hear about contactees or abductees and their encounters with the Greys seem almost robotic, rather unemotional, detached, in some cases even cruel, maybe not intentionally so. But what you're describing, Dolly, these Greys seem kind, spiritually enlightened. Are we talking about two different races of Greys here?
Okay, let's begin with this. There's no such thing as multiple races in the universe. We are pretty much all one race. We dime out differently, we DNA differently, but that doesn't make our race different. We're all human bipedal. We can interbreed with one another. Even on our planet, there are no races. We are all human genome. We just look different. That's a whole nother, your ethnic, okay, your ethnicity from where you grew up on the planet. You either got darker or lighter according to where you were living with the heat or not, okay? So ethnicity, yes, there are multiple ethnicities of Greys. There's 7 that I know of. And the ones that you think don't have emotions are kind of, stern. They're about 3 feet tall and they're AI, okay? And they can be autonomous as well as indwelt by remotely by another Grey for a specific reason. When they're not used, you can stack them up like chairs.
Really?
They're not necessary. They are necessary for a very important reason. Space is dangerous. Space is full of gamma radiation. We live on a planet with a magnetosphere, and it protects us from that incoming. It pushes it away from us. But out in space, that's not the story. There's no protection from it. And they would prefer to be on a planet with a magnetosphere, and they do try to do that most of the time. When they're not, the Greys are working, and they do most everything for them. That's why most humans' first contact with them is the AI Greys. And yeah, they're autonomous little biological constructs, and they don't display a lot of emotion. They're very matter of fact and do what they got to do.
And did you have initially, do you remember having interactions with the AI Greys, or were you only dealing with the tall Greys?
My first contact were AI Greys, who I saw in those 2 ports on that craft were AI Greys. And that's what threw me, because I don't have a real memory of seeing them up close before that. There wasn't anything in the back of my mind to warn me psychically that, what the hell, okay? And so when I saw them, I was like, not meeting you today. And I started to move away from them. And that didn't end up being what happened, but yeah. And I've gotten to know who they are, what they are, and why they are. And they're very, very good at what they do.
All right, we have another timeout ahead of us here. We'll come back. Preston, we'll get back to you. Preston Dennett, the author of Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure, which is the story of Dolly Safran, a lifelong contactee, a conscious contactee. She remembers everything. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us.
PIN numbers, passcodes, social insurance numbers. If they make you wonder how private they are, here's 2 more numbers. 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
I call it the miracle molecule, carbon-60 or C60 for my good friends at C60evo.com. And I take a tablespoon every morning. It delivers more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. C60 is a known antiviral, antioxidant, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. It's a remedy that works. C60 Evo users consistently enjoy better sleep and wake up feeling refreshed. This alone is worth the cost of the bottle. I sleep like a baby. I have no aches or pains, 0. I'm 58 and I don't have a gray hair on my head. Get your miracle in a bottle, C60 from c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. Use the coupon code EVRS at checkout and save an additional 10%. This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. If you have a medical concern, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. Follow Richard on Twitter @Richard Syrett. For show information, visit the website strangeplanet.ca.
Everything you know behind on The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
And if you're gathered in the YouTube live chat, just a heads up, next segment we'll take questions, comments, and my live stream producer Ryan White can curate those for me, and he'll send them my way, and then I'll read them over the air for either Dolly or Preston or both. Preston Dennett, the author of Symmetry, a true UFO adventure, his 29th book, and it is the story, remarkable story, of Dolly Safran and her lifelong encounters with Greys. Preston, what's the most important thing you learned from Dolly regarding this whole UFO ET arena?
That's a difficult question. I think that she confirmed the conclusion, the assessment that I'd finally come to. Initially, when I got involved in this field, I was not a happy camper. I felt like the contact experience was very traumatic, and I was wondering if this was good for us. And after years of research and looking very carefully at what happens to people when they are taken on board, I started to come around 180 degrees and realize, well, when people are being physically examined, often they're being healed, and when they don't have a strong fear reaction, their experience is quite different. They are not rendered paralyzed. They do not have their memory suppressed. They're often given a tour of the craft, taken to see the engine room perhaps, taken up to the helm, the control room, told how to fly the craft. Perhaps they're taken up to an observation deck. The walls will turn transparent, and they show them there's Earth down below, there's the moon, there's another planet, a star field. They will give them spiritual advice, how to heal, how to do astral travel, past life recall, precognition, all these kinds of things. And this is something I heard piecemeal, largely from people. And like Dolly was saying, there's the AI Greys, and then there's the medium Greys and tall Greys who are emotional and loving. And it was confusing to me because I would hear people talk about these little Greys running around and being somewhat, unfeeling or not reacting to their emotions. And they usually describe seeing, a taller Grey who was sort of, don't really like the term handler, but their contact, their main person. And often they describe them as being very emotional, loving even. And to hear Dolly describe this in more lucid terms really brought, a lot of the things together and confirmed them for me. Contact experience is good for us. It can be very scary, especially when you're being physically examined, but honestly, Richard, that's the worst I hear. I have no accounts, virtually none, of what I would call sadistic behavior or ETs trying to hurt or scare people. It just doesn't, it's not there. Certainly not in my files.
Dolly, when you're on board a craft or you're on their home planet, do you see other contactees, and do you recognize them when you come back? I mean, I don't know, maybe a neighbor or someone down the street or a police officer who's also been taken aboard.
There are a few people who I grew up around that, yes, I know that we're all contactees together. And I see them and I'm still friends with them on social media. And whether they're conscious or cognizant of it is a whole other story. There are a few. My best friend that I grew up with is a contactee as well, and she's now passed away. But her sister remembers everything she ever told her about it. And that pleased me more than you know. It made me happy to hear that she talked about us and our adventures and stuff like that. I've run into two people in my lifetime who I know are contactees, but did not recognize me. So there was nothing I could do about it. I just smiled at them and, went through my life after that. I saw one at the zoo that I was at, and I saw one working in the school system. It shocked me, and that amazed me. So yeah, I've run into people. I mostly isolate. My life has been very busy, so I don't really do a lot here socially or anything like that. I don't see anybody. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. So that's how I live because I'm too busy elsewhere.
After all this time, more than 50 years, why did you decide to come forward now and tell your story to Preston Dennett? Did the Greys kind of direct you in that regard? Now is the time? And if so, why?
Yes. They've been trying to enlighten and bring people to come be aware of what's happening around them. We don't live in a world where it's not known to you. At least they try to make sure you're not known what's actually happening to our solar system right now, our planets. It is time. It's more than time. I became frantic at one point to say, because everybody I talk to just doesn't seem to get it. And it's like their education is so lacking and so sparse that there's no way for them to get what's going on. And we're all autonomous beings. ET taught me that. Okay, that's why we have free reign here. That's why they don't interfere in our lives. We have a situation now. Our planet is in trouble. It is coming rapidly, and they can't make rescue until people wake up enough. So I'm one of the front runners, and there are many of us, I'm telling you, who are talking privately to people, trying to get people to wake up and use their innate abilities to seek the truth, to get away from negativity, to clean their bodies up because we're polluted, and to get ready.
Get ready. We'll ask you for get ready for what when we come back. This was a short segment. Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran stay with us. Symmetry, a true UFO adventure. Back with more in a moment.
Providing the evidence and letting you.
If you're a fan of this radio program and the Strange Planet podcast, why not show it off by wearing Strange Planet apparel or drinking from a Strange Planet mug? Check out all the great Strange Planet merch in my Strange Planet shop. Just go to the website, strangeplanet.ca, and click on Shop in the menu. There's a huge selection of men's and women's t-shirts. You like crop circles or the Mayan calendar? Got you covered. Are you into the Anunnaki? Wait till you see these designs. My favorite right now, lions do not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. And one of our best sellers right now, Truth Gets You Crucified on the front and a passage from Matthew chapter 23 on the back. So many great t-shirt designs, I don't know where to begin. There's women's leggings and tote bags and, of course, mugs. Great gifts for family and friends who listen and love this show. My Strange Planet shop. Visit today and often. Just go to strangeplanet.ca and check it out.
As you're staring up at the night sky, ever wonder who's staring back? You're listening to Richard Syrett's Strange Planet.
All right, welcome back. Dolly Safran is with us, and Preston Dennett, the author of Symmetry, a true UFO adventure. Before I get back to you, Dolly, and ask you, prepare for what? Preston, why is it called Symmetry?
I'm glad you asked that. My first title, I wanted to call it Dolly Among the Stars. We ended up calling a chapter with that name. But I asked Dolly, do you have any ideas? What do you want to title the book? It's really your story. And she says, I want to call it Symmetry. I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting choice. Why? And she explained that this was one of the ET lessons that they really pounded into her. It was very important for her to understand that there's a symmetry to life throughout the universe. And this was a very pronounced lesson. And they took her to these other planets and showed her that life is pretty much the same everywhere. They showed her people who live on other planets, and they look like us. with minor differences. But yeah, there's pine trees, there's, you know, mammals, there's fish, there's birds. There's a symmetry to life throughout the universe, and not only with, you know, life, but energy as well, and the structure of our universe, from the macro universe with solar systems and galaxies to the micro universe, all the way down to an atomic level. There's a symmetry and a pattern to all of this. The humanoid form is pretty much universal. So this was a big lesson, and symmetry is a really good way to wrap that all up in one word.
All right, Dolly, before the break, you were saying that they were telling you you need to speak, you need to come out and speak publicly about your experiences because we need to prepare. It's coming. What do we need to prepare for?
Our solar system, our sun, has some issues. And for the last 280 million years, give or take, because our planet was part of a huge planetoid crash in our universe. Mars was in the sweet seat. Mars was opposing Mars around the sun. We were a little bit more, Earth was gravity light. Mars is a bigger planet, and it was more gravity heavy, and it was loaded with life. And a rogue planet came in. There was another planet in our system. It destroyed that planet completely, sent it straight up to the Kuiper Belt. It burst Mars to the point that it totally burst out its entire outside, lost everything in the hit. All its moons took hits, and it is now outgassing, and it has no core. It is now a dead planet. It is cold. Earth wobbles, and it has the inside of the planet hit to the point that we have bulges on the inside of our, underneath the magma. And we have big, huge magma pockets that go in different directions. They're huge. And we wobble as a result, and we tilt. The sun, because of all the dust and the debris from this cataclysmic event, burps every now and then. There's a lot of dust, plasma dust in the universe to begin with, but we're loaded with it, okay? And the sun is taking it on constantly, and it's like every 10,000 years for one thing that goes on with us, and then about 6,000 for another. We're experiencing both at the same time right now. We also have a very large electromagnetic current sheet slicing through us from our own galaxy. So our sun is not a happy camper, and we are about to experience a CME of biblical proportions. Our magnetosphere is down. Our sun changed its pulse about 80 years ago. All the planets in our system are now changing their pulse. I'll give you an example. One that just occurred was Neptune. We just saw that planet develop one hot spot, and the rest of the planet went cold when it changed its polarity. We're about there, and it's getting worse. While this has been occurring, our magnetosphere is down. We're taking heavy loads of gamma radiation here. If you want to know why there's more cancer, why there's more autoimmune disorders, why there's more mental disorders, why our genome is breaking down, that's why. The powers that be on this planet know this. They've known it for quite some time. They've been preparing for it. They've proved it. When we have that CME, it will be X-class. And it's going to come through us because we have no magnetosphere to protect us from it as a Class X CME. And it will send everything on this planet straight back to the Stone Age all the way down 10 miles deep. That's a serious situation. ET is not here right now. They bugged out about a year ago, almost a full year ago. The last of them are now gone. They do maintain watching us. They have satellites. And they are able to remote view us and OBE us and stuff like that. But they are physically not here. They can't fly this. The crashes that you've heard about over time are because our magnetosphere was going down, and our electromagnetic currents on this planet would send the craft crashing to the ground. It would just suddenly disappear and it would go down. And an experienced pilot couldn't maintain it.
So when is the timeline? When is this supposed to happen?
Well, the excursion is sped up, and they're really not sure here. ET explains to me what I've learned from them is that we're looking at 2.5 to 3 years from now. The powers that be on this planet have dug down. All those bases that you think are underground are nothing but hide holes for them to go and live underground. And it's all over the planet. Every single 1% the population that has all the money and all the know-how have planned for this. There's a huge seed depository up in the northern hemisphere. There's all kinds of things already in place for this. Most of the people here have been dummied down educationally. They've been lied to. You have tons of negativity coming at you. Your ability to use your innate ability is messed up. Okay.
So are they going to abandon us and allow only the 1% of the 1% will survive? And what of the rest of us?
That's what they're planning. They don't care. What do you think is going on right now? I mean, use your cognitive reasoning here. What do you think is happening to the people on this planet right now? Think it through. There is going to be a culling of humanity because they can't take the chance on you fighting them for their underground places because a lot of us already know where they are. This is not.
But the ETs are going to sit back and watch this happen, or are they going to come in like the cavalry, or what's to be done?
Okay, we're autonomous beings. We were put on this planet to evolve. We have been given free reign here. We have always had the ability to make our own decisions. Our consciousness is total and complete all the way around the planet. Every person on this planet can add into their consciousness of everybody else, but they can't right now because you're cut off from it psychically. You're not using your abilities. They want you to wake up so that you can hear the truth. You're going to have to prepare to take the CME. Okay, you're going to have to prepare to survive. Once it happens, and I'm telling you that it's going to be a big deal, every single satellite on the planet is going to hit the ground when this happens. They're already planning, NASA's planning to bring the ISS down in about a year and a half because they're afraid it's going to hit one of their facilities. So they're going to drop it into the deepest part of the ocean. Look it up. It's true. Okay? If you sit and critically eyeball everything that's going on across the globe, you will start connecting the dots into truth. For you to understand all of it, you need to learn how to communicate with ET. They cannot help you if you cannot understand them. And that means detox your body. Eat the right food. Stop eating meat here. It is bad for you. Okay? It will mess you up. ETs are meat eaters as well. They're omnivorous as we are, but they wouldn't eat this meat if their life depended on it. It's bad. Clean up. Use your abilities. Meditate. Learn how to OBE. Learn to connect up to the serious consciousness of the universe. It talks. You could hear it. Once you do that and you work on surviving this, ET will come back after that CME hits. It'll take about 6 months to a year for our magnetosphere to boot back up and be where it belongs, okay? And they can come in then, and they do plan to land everywhere all over this planet, open the doors, and get us to hell, excuse my French, out of here. Because this isn't all that's going to happen. We have a sun that has been accumulating debris, and it is about to micronova. You saw a micronova in 2019, Betelgeuse micronova. They didn't tell you the truth about it, but that's what you were watching happened. Everything on the surface of that sun that accumulated and became heavy exploded like a bomb and went out into their solar system. We're about to have that happen to us.
So let me ask you now, Preston, after hearing all of this from Dolly, is there a little bit, maybe a part of you that wishes maybe you hadn't met her and didn't hear all of this bad news, potentially bad news?
No. I'm hearing this from other contactees. This is not unique. Many contactees have told me how they have visions of the skies filling with UFOs, them landing, picking people up. I think this is great news for us because we cannot continue on the path we're going down. There's greed and corruption and pollution and war choking our planet, and we are on the verge of destroying ourselves anyway. So I think this is not doom and gloom at all. This is really good news for us. It might be, rough to go through for a little while, but ultimately I think it's going to be a new age for humanity.
But most won't survive. I mean, would you not agree? Most will not survive this.
Well, there's no such thing as that, for one thing.
You realize there's no death, right? You realize that we recycle here. We recycle all over the universe. You are a constant, alive entity that has no beginning and no end. You are conscious throughout the universe. And if you do end here, it just means nothing. It just means that you're going to start over again somewhere else and decide what you're going to do with yourself. Those who do survive will be taken to safety. There's an issue with this as well, because it's going to take a long time for this planet, once that micronova happens, because our planet's going to flop over. Our
I've
planet's
just got about 20 seconds here.
It's going to take about 30 million years for it to get okay.
30 million. Wow. Listen,
Yeah.
we got to run. I'll be speaking with both of you on Coast to Coast AM in the very near future. So thank you both for this.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Preston Dennett and Dolly Safran. Yeah, listen for us on Coast. We have Mary Joyce coming up next. Don't go away.
Richard Syrett's Strange Planet, following the truth wherever it leads, exposing evil and corruption and the secret machinations of powerful elites, revealing the high strangeness beneath the surface of our supposed reality, coming to you from the Great White North and his studio beneath the stairs. Here's Richard.
On Zoomer Radio.
Thanks for inviting me into your home, your long-haul truck, RV, camper, taxi, your parents' well-appointed basement with the simulated wood paneling, electric fireplace, and the painting of dogs playing poker, your loft, that greasy spoon just off the interstate, and your cabin in the woods. Carlos Kajina is our technical producer, and Ryan White is our live stream producer. Be sure to check out my YouTube and Rumble channels, Strange Planet. All right, this hour, a visit from one of my favorites, Mary Joyce. She's worked for two major metropolitan newspapers, the Orlando Sentinel in Florida as an artist and columnist, and the Oakland Press in Michigan as a Sunday magazine editor and then feature editor. On the side, she's written magazine articles and books, and since 2008, she's been the main researcher and editor for the Skyships Over Cashiers website, which features a wide variety of cutting-edge topics from UFOs to secret underground bases, from Bigfoot to Cherokee Little People, and she's the author of a number of books, including Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains, Cherokee Little People Were Real, Tangible Evidence of Jesus Left Behind for Us, and Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints. Mary, welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm real good. I hope you are too.
Likewise, yes. This is an interesting story, and Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, the late John Lennon's son, performed a tribute, kind of a memorial to his father. He was fundraising for Ukrainian refugees and to raise money for war-torn Ukraine. And I guess that kind of got you thinking about something that happened back in 2013 at John Lennon's memorial, a peace tower in Iceland. Tell me about that.
Believe it or not, it was what a place to build a memorial, but it's on the island, I guess, of Greenland and
Iceland. Yeah.
Iceland. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And it's called Imagine Peace Tower. It was built by Yoko Ono, his wife, and she dedicated it to her husband. Well, what is interesting is that I, a bunch of years ago, was contacted by a man who lives in the Netherlands, and he has gotten us some really great UFO photos. And he got UFO photos of these UFOs going around this tower. Now, this tower is a tower of light. And so they're real strong blue beams that go straight up into the sky. And so there are these UFOs that circle that beam of light, which is almost like they're endorsing what that stood for. And during this time where we're having war again, and with Julian Lennon coming out with this song again, I just thought that was kind of appropriate to bring that old story back up for people to hear about.
Are UFOs often attracted to beams of light emanating from the surface of the Earth?
This is the first time I can actually connect them with something like this. Many times we connect them with electrical power plants or nuclear power plants or military bases or large bodies of water. I've never really been aware of them just being attracted to a beam of light, which in my opinion perhaps makes this more significant because they were acknowledging quite an unusual memorial.
Right. And John Lennon had a fascination with UFOs. Of course, he had that famous sighting when he lived in Greenwich Village. This was before he was in the Dakota building with Yoko. He was living with May Pang down in the village and both of them saw from the roof of their apartment building a huge craft just hovering down, I guess it would be the Hudson River. And he wrote about that or mentioned it on his 1974 Walls and Bridges album. So he had a long-standing fascination with UFOs. At one point, when he was living in the Dakota, he claimed to have had a dream that turned out not to be a dream. There were aliens in the building, and they handed him an egg, which he later, I don't know if you've heard this story, Mary, but he later gave this egg. It looked like a Fabergé egg almost. He gave it to Uri Geller, the famous Israeli psychic. Have you heard of that story?
I've only heard about him seeing a UFO from his apartment. I do not know about this egg. So go right ahead and inform us all.
Oh, that's about it, really. I don't have much more to add except that he claimed that these insectoid-like aliens at the Dakota handed him this egg, and apparently it was, I don't know, supposed to hold the key to all knowledge or something, but at some point he had befriended Uri Geller, and he gave him this egg, and Uri still has it to this day. So that's just a kind of a quick aside. So it is interesting that his imagined Peace Tower memorial in Reykjavik would be visited by, it looks like, some extraterrestrial craft flying around. This it's a rather unique looking memorial. It's as you say, there's 13, I believe, 13 light beams pointed up into the sky. They go something like 2.5 miles up into the sky. All right, so we have to talk about some interesting video evidence of a Mississippi swamp ape. And how did you get a hold of this?
Sometimes I just stumble on things, and I sometimes feel like somebody's behind me just kind of pushing me in a direction to find something. So there's no special thing except I stumbled on it. And what makes this interesting is that there was a man who was in a swamp in Mississippi, and he was dressed in camouflage, and he was hunkered down in this swamp hunting wild hogs. So he's being very still. He's waiting for a wild hog. And what happened was he was so still and so camouflaged that there was a Bigfoot not far from where he was, who was oblivious to this man. His first name was Josh, even being anywhere near. And so Josh was able to get a video of this Bigfoot who seemed to be eating something from inside the base of a very large, somewhat hollowed out cypress tree. And he is either peeling off the inside of the tree and eating it, or there's something inside there, like ants or termites or something that he would find appealing. And I encouraged people in the posting to enlarge the picture on their computer and to also turn up the volume, because what makes this video authentic is that you can hear the sounds and they match the movement. And when people do fake things, it's real hard to make everything sync. And this swamp ape picture does exactly that. We've only gotten one other swamp ape video footage, and that was in a Florida swamp. And this was just a canoeist who was just canoeing in a swamp. I believe it was northeast of Tampa. And he just stumbled upon a Bigfoot who was also having lunch. But again, snapshots would never convince you of anything. What makes these both convincing is the movement. And in the Florida case, you can see the Bigfoot catch a snake, and then it looks like he eats it. So both of these people were able to catch some active lunchtime periods for the Bigfoot.
Right. These are two of the most compelling pieces of video evidence I've ever seen of Bigfoot. In these cases, I guess they are swamp apes.
It's just another name for Bigfoot.
Right. But they seem to be generally they're smaller than the Bigfoot that we think of when we from the Pacific Northwest, let's say. Correct?
I kind of put them in three categories. The ones down in the swamps tend to be the smaller ones. The ones where I live are kind of medium size, and I'm here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And then out west is where you get the really big guys.
Right. And often, photographs we see of Bigfoot, they are very blurry, or they're from a distance. You really can't make out what's happening. And in some cases, they're obviously hoaxes. But in this case, you see, as you say, a man who's hunkered down in the woods, and he's captured this, I guess, on his camera phone. And he's trying to walk gingerly up to this hollowed out tree where this creature is kind of hunched over. And as you say, it looks like he's stripping off pieces of bark or something and eating. And the creature has kind of long, gangly arms. It almost looks like a gorilla. That's the first thing I thought. What did you think?
The proportions are different. And when he stands up at the very end of the film, he takes on the shape of what we expect a Bigfoot to look like. But it scared the you-know-what out of Josh, and the video quickly came to an end because you can see him running off. He wasn't going to contend with this guy.
Right. It's a 2-minute, 16-second video, and the link is provided if you go to skyshipsovercashiers.com, skyshipsovercashiers.com, and I've linked up to Mary's website at strangeplanet.ca. Just click on her name. It'll take you right there. And then just look for the Mississippi Swamp Ape video story. And there's a link there where you can watch the first one involving this hunter, Josh. Then in the second one, where did the second one come from? This is was taken in a Florida swamp, and it was sent, whoever took the video then sent it to somebody else, I guess, who runs kind of a Bigfoot evidence website, and he enhanced it.
Somebody did do that with a version of this. I believe what we have is the original.
Okay, and kind of set this one up. There's
a man. His name is his title is Thinker Thunker, and he takes different kinds of videos, especially of things that are in question like this, and will analyze them. He will do it all sorts of different ways. So there's a version of his commentary on that. I have the simple one that just takes you right to the video itself, and it speaks for itself. Again, in both of these videos, if you just take snapshots or individual frames from the video, there's nothing convincing about it at all. It is the continuous movement and action that becomes so convincing. And that second one with the Florida swamp ape ran about 3.5 minutes.
Yes, again, the most compelling video evidence I've seen of perhaps any cryptid, Bigfoot or otherwise. In your book, Bigfoot.
About Bigfoot? Uh-huh.
Yes, Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints. Do you spend a lot of time discussing swamp apes?
No, I don't. Because I like to be as close to the stories as I can be. And so most of the stories that I have in there, not all of them, but they all started here in the mountains of North Carolina. And as you've heard me say before, I'm in a really interesting spot because we have Bigfoot, we have little people, we have UFOs, and we have underground military bases. And so for a former newspaper writer and editor, it's a very interesting place to have moved into.
I'll say, yes, you're right in the, seems like you're right in the center of all that activity. This is a fascinating story at skyshipsovercashiers.com. It's about a mummy, a 14-inch tall mummy that was discovered. And it's of a little person, all right, about 14 inches, as I say. Tell us about it. Where was it discovered?
Well, this is not a news story, actually, but it's one that nobody I know had ever heard of. And back in 1932, there were two gold miners. I believe they were south of Casper, Wyoming, and they found a cave in the San Pedro Mountains. And in it was this little mummy. Now, this mummy has been confirmed as authentic because it was given to the American Museum of Natural History, and they confirmed that it was a real little human, 14 inches tall, about 65 years of age. Because it came from the San Pedro Mountains, it's called the Pedro Man. So you can probably, find some of the information about the Pedro Man just by typing that into your search bar. But the little man had been killed rather violently. He basically was in a yoga position, which you normally think of as something peaceful, but he had been hit so severely that his brain was exposed, his collarbone was broken, his spine was damaged. I don't know why somebody would want to beat the you-know-what out of a little tiny creature, but they did. So anyhow, because of the American Museum of Natural History and also Harvard University Anthropology Department confirming all of this, it's not just a hoax. It's not just something that somebody wanted to dream up for the world. When I first posted it, I had a number of photos of it, and I posted one of them. After I did that, I found another picture, which was much more interesting, and I had to do a whole new article because the side view of this little mummy, he has pointed ears, like elf ears. And so I did a whole recent article, and it's just titled "Pointed Elf Ears Were and Are Real." So I have a picture of this little mummy where you can see his ear. And then here in the mountains where we have little people, there was a medallion-sized, I don't know, a little face. Has a face on both sides. It has the elf ears. It has a rather large nose and strange eyes. And this was found during a historic flood here in the mountains, and it was found by a little 5-year-old. And so it came from so deep within the ground that that in itself indicated it was very old. But it's in the same area as our little people stories and our little people legends. And according to the old timers that I interviewed about the little people, there were two different kinds in this area. And one looked like the native Cherokee people, but the other one, the Cherokee really didn't like, and they would try to kill them. And they described them as having red whiskers and squinty eyes. And I have to wonder if this medallion-shaped little head, which I have a photo of in the article, if it was I don't know, a rendition of one of those characters. And then I got even deeper into all this because we all have heard about elf ears with, gnomes and fairies and elves and leprechauns and all of that. But I found out that there are people born today who have these, and it's not uncommon. According to Yale Medicine, 1 in every 6,000 newborns has an outer ear deformity they call Stahl's ear. And basically that is just an extra fold in the cartilage of the upper ear, which produces that pointed ear appearance. And so I've included pictures of the ears of 4 little babies, and they all have variations on elf ears.
Is that possible that, I don't know, somehow years ago, generations ago, there may have been some intermingling with the little people and full-size humans, and that gene from the ancestor pops out once in a while?
I don't know, but it makes you wonder. And quite a few years ago, I picked up an edition of the Cherokee newspaper, which I can't think of the real name of it right now, but it's the paper for the reservation. And there was like a wedding anniversary or wedding celebration for a couple. And there was a normal size Cherokee woman, and her husband was this little short man. And that was the first time I thought about the possibility that there might have been, that kind of interaction with the little people, at least sometimes. So anything's possible. We humans seem to be rather indiscriminate about how we get along with each other.
Mary Joyce is the founder and chief researcher at skyshipsovercashiers.com, skyshipsovercashiers.com. Just getting back to that mummy that was uncovered, 14-inch tall mummified remains of a little man. And that was found near Casper, Wyoming. Now, when we've been talking about little people, you and I, over the years, associated with the Cherokee, those are mainly, the Cherokee were mainly, in Appalachia, North Carolina. What would a little person be doing way out in Wyoming? Are there stories and legends from out there as well?
The little people have been found all over the world. And a few years ago, I was out in South Dakota and went to the Sioux Indian Reservation out there, one of them out there, and got to know a young woman whose, I think, grandfather was a shaman, her older brother was a shaman, and she was a very intuitive type of person. And she opened up with me. Of course, I started the conversation, and she told me about the little people living out in South Dakota. And so these little creatures are not limited to just one place. And her stories were really rather unique. The one I like the best is that I think it's her older brothers or her uncles. They were, I think, swimming in a creek that's on the reservation. And in the course of that, they found a little cave off the side of this creek. And they went into it. And there was a small quiver, a small drum, a small set of arrows, and a bow. And these guys, the boys, took these things and took them back to town and showed them to their grandfather. Well, the grandfather got very, very upset with the boys and told them to take those things right back because it would only cause trouble, which it did. For a couple of days, everybody was losing chickens, and the little people were killing them. Now, at first, that sounds just terrible. But on the other hand, if you're just a little person, how can you respond to people who are like twice your size and taking advantage of you? So they didn't keep up the retaliation very long, but they did let the big folks know that they didn't want to be bothered.
Don't mess with the little people. All right, Mary.
With the little people.
Mary, we'll take a quick time out, come back. Mary Joyce from skyshipsovercashiers.com. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us.
Corporations, government.
Guys, we've seen so many people making ridiculous money from crypto, but did you know it's easy for you to do the same? The Copy My Crypto membership site shows you the coins that the YouTuber James McMahon personally holds and allows you to copy him. It's like having a big brother who knows what he's doing. You don't need to know a thing about crypto or how to invest, as you simply do what he does. So let me tell you more about James. He runs the Crypto with James YouTube channel, which, despite heavy censorship, has over 17,000 subscribers and 1 million views. Since March 2020, he's told his viewers to buy 26 crypto coins. Had you put in $100 into each one, it would now be worth over $53,000. Of the 26 coins, his top pick of the year, a coin called Phantom, is currently up over 440 times from when he said to buy. That one call alone has retired a number of people, including guys in their 20s and 30s. Remember, this is public knowledge. You can go to YouTube and verify this for yourself. So if you'd like to join the 1,300 members who copy James, then stop what you're doing and head over to copymycrypto.com/dollar. copymycrypto.com/dollar. That's DOLLAR. You'll not only find proof of everything I've said, but listeners get full access for just $1. You can't find this offer anywhere else, but act fast because the offer ends soon. That's copymycrypto.com/dollar. That's DOLLAR. Don't take this offer lightly. He's the real deal. Go visit the site now.
Welcome back to Richard Syrett's Strange Planet.
When you can renew, refresh.
at 1-866-740-4740.
And we are back with Mary Joyce, founder and chief researcher at skyshipsovercashiers.com, skyshipsovercashiers.com. Well, let's keep on with the little people theme. You've got a story here on the website about a man's encounter with a little person in a forest in South Carolina. Tell me about it.
To be quite honest with you, I am such a newspaper person that I wouldn't have published his story if I hadn't already found out about this mummy. He managed to contact me sometime after that. I think it was before I published it on the website, but so he couldn't have picked it up from there. And he is a professional who was very concerned that his name not be used because he didn't want people to, think badly of him because it sounds fanciful. And basically, when he was a younger man, he and some of his buddies went on a camping fishing trip. So the whole plan was to go to this place in the one of the national forests in South Carolina, which is adjacent to where I live. And they would spend the night there, and then the next morning they would get up and fish on the river. And they were, around the campfire just having a good time. And at some point, this man got kind of tired. His name is James. And he went over and sat on a cooler off by himself. And his buddy came over and asked if everything was all right. And almost instantly, there was this little creature, again, about the 13, 14 inches tall, that popped up on a little mound of dirt right next to where they were. His buddy went nuts and was about to smash the little thing, which you can understand why the mummy from Wyoming got smashed, because this guy, I guess, was just freaked out by it. Well, the little man disappeared and the friend backed off, but the little guy came back. And I should back up a little bit, because when he first showed up, he was acting real friendly. And the guys could not understand him, but it was clear that he was trying to, say hello or to welcome them. And I asked him what the little guy looked like. And these are his words. He said he was about 13 to 14 inches tall. He looked human, maybe a little fat, and his skin was whitish like a Caucasian. He had round cheeks and a pudgy nose, and his eyes were lighter. He looked like a gnome from the gnomes book, except he didn't have a beard. His hair was brown, and his hat wasn't pointed. It was a floppy brimmed hat, and then he gave me a photo of what it kind of looked like. And his clothes were brown, different shades from light to dark. If you were walking in the forest, he would blend in so well you probably wouldn't see him. He wore boots with his trousers tucked into them. Someone in his tribe must have known how to weave, because his clothing was made of cloth. His hair was cut just above his shoulders, and he appeared to be very clean and well kept. Well, what's interesting is, I think many years after that, he met a person who understood what James had gone through, because this other man and his friends used to go fishing and camping in the same area. And he said that they became friends with this little guy. And every now and then they would give him a can of beer. So when James was looking back on his whole experience, he said, so it seems the tiny man was initially friendly with me and my buddy because he thought we might have a beer for him. That's probably all he wanted from us that night we were camping in the forest. So it's kind of a fanciful story, and on its own, I'm not sure I would have printed it, but when I could do it in conjunction with this verified little mummy, I decided it was worth doing.
Now, you write in the article that the little people that you've written about in your book, Cherokee little people, were real. You say they're giants compared to the tiny ones that some people have seen. So the Cherokee little people, how tall were they, or are they approximately?
They really are giants compared to these little creatures. They're in the 3 foot to 3.5 feet tall size.
Ah, okay. And these little tiny people are 13 to 14 inches, so just
Correct.
over a foot.
Correct. Big difference.
I'll say.
and harder to believe. But nevertheless, I keep getting more and more indications that this is a reality.
I had a call. I was hosting Coast to Coast recently, and we were doing our open lines on a Friday night. And I asked for people to call in, as per usual on a Friday, with their unusual encounters with cryptids or strange creatures. And someone described, I can't remember which state he was in, went on a fishing trip, and he and a few buddies on the banks of this river enjoying some beer. And all of a sudden they realized they were sort of surrounded by these little people. Now, these little people were not friendly. They started shooting, he claimed, little arrows at them. And the next day, supposedly, they went back and they collected up some of these arrows, and he promised to send me some pictures. He hasn't yet. But it seems like some are friendly and some are quite aggressive, Mary.
I have yet to become an expert on this because I have just recently delved into this whole world of the tiny 12 to 14-inch ones. So I really cannot make any conclusions at this point, but I certainly am keeping an open mind and will keep doing research on it. Clearly, as long as this one little guy got his beer, he was perfectly friendly.
All right. Now, one of the things that you're famous for, Mary, and that has to do with these secret underground facilities in North Carolina, and you have an update for us. Tell us about it.
I'll give you just a little bit of background. I've done research and written about 5 different underground facilities here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. The one that I believe to be the oldest is known around here as PARI, P-A-R-I. It actually stands for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. But this place, which is in a national forest here in the mountains, has quite a history. And back in the early 60s, it was a tracking station for satellites and for unmanned flights. And then it was turned over at some point to the Department of Defense. And in my research, I've gotten the testimonies of many people, 2 of them with top security clearance, who have told me that beneath this PARI facility is a city-size city, which is self-sufficient. And I've heard about it from other people too, but when I hear it from people with top security clearance, that gives it a lot more credibility. Now, what I've learned more recently is I got an email and a phone call from a man who lives near this PARI Center, and he said there's something going on there. There are explosions under the ground. There's rumblings. It looks like they are doing some kind of underground expansion there. So the first thing I did was to use Google Earth and look at the site. And what I found was there was all this evidence of this big hole in the ground where they were taking dirt out. And then there were at least 2 long bed trucks, dump trucks. They were excavating or earth moving equipment pieces around the area. And there was this large hole that you could see that it was a hole. It was mostly covered by 2 very large tarps. And the dirt was being taken out of there and then spread out evenly on the adjacent land rather than building up a mound. And of course, that would help keep this whole activity more secret. And then I was able to go back in time with Google and found out that in 2017, there were no signs of this digging at all. In 2018, there were signs of it. So this made it really clear that new digging beneath the ground began in 2018. And it's still a mysterious place. There's things that I hear that I can't really put on the website unless I get more credibility or credentialed people to vouch for it, but I will give you an idea. We've had people report that small like caravans of black vehicles have been seen going into this facility. Well, supposedly it's an educational astronomy place now, but why would you have those mysterious black vehicles going in a line into that facility. We had a man who had recently retired, not as an old man, but had retired from the Air Force. And he saw a man outside that gate to the facility in tactical gear. And sometimes you can get right into the place and sometimes you can't. Another witness had seen...
Mary, let me just jump in here. Pardon the interruption. We'll take a quick time out. We'll come back and we'll pick up on this, an update on secret underground facilities in North Carolina. Mary Joyce, founder and chief researcher at skyshipsovercashiers.com. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us.
You can become an official Patreon supporter of my work here at Strange Planet Productions by donating a monthly amount through patreon.com/Strange Planet. Patreon.com/Strange Planet. There are several tiers to choose from. Pick which one is right for you, but any monthly amount is greatly appreciated. As a sign of my appreciation, you can have your name mentioned on air during my weekly radio show, or you could have your name included in a crawl on my YouTube channel live stream. You could also receive episodes of my old podcast, The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone. This critically acclaimed podcast, produced in partnership with Chris Jericho, is not currently available anywhere else. If you enjoy this podcast or my weekly radio program, The Conspiracy Show, you can really get behind me and my work by donating once a month at patreon.com/Strange Planet. Patreon.com/Strange Planet.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. We're now crossing a zone of turbulence. Please return your seats and food trays to their upright position and make sure your carry-on luggage is safely stowed. You're about to leave everything you know behind. This is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. Strange Planet.
There's The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
Welcome back. Mary Joyce stays with us, skyshipsovercashiers.com. And we're talking about an update to the secret underground bases in North Carolina. And this one is near Rosman, North Carolina, and it's called PERI, which is an acronym standing for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. And recently there's been some reports of more activity, rumbling, and a Google map or a Google Earth satellite photo shows a large hole in the middle of this area being, and it's covered with a tarp, and then we see long bed trucks carting away dirt and so forth. And you were about to tell us another eyewitness story.
I guess I kind of started on it. A man with the Air Force, or who had recently retired from the Air Force, got very interested in what was happening around this place. And he saw a man in tactical gear guarding the gate. Sometimes you can get into that place without a problem, and sometimes you can't. It's just a very strange place. And I will speak firsthand on this. When there have been 2 times when I've had other people in the car with me when I've gotten close to this place, and all 4 of us have felt this very strange feeling in our heads when we get close to this place. It's a kind of an uncomfortable feeling. It's like you want to get away from wherever you are because it's not pleasant. I call it people repellent. I think they actually use some kind of a electromagnetic pulse or something that I call people repellent that kind of discourages people from coming in that area when they don't want you to be there.
Oh, sometimes the police use those for crowd control. They're like microwave weapons on trucks. They're very secretive about it, but they do use them. And sometimes they can inflict real pain. People feel like, their skin is being burned, but apparently they don't last. They don't, it's not a permanent injury.
So maybe that's what's happening there. Any UFO activity around this particular site, Perry?
There always has been. One of the witnesses who lives in the area, he used to give me lots of reports of the UFOs coming in, except every time he did, his computer system was all messed up. And finally, one time when he reported something, it actually was crashed completely. So he quit sharing stories because he simply could not afford to have his equipment destroyed like that. So there's a real cover-up situation there, even to this day. And again, as far as we know, this started back in the early 60s.
So why do you suppose there was such a kind of a pause in activity and now it's ramping up again?
Well, that to me indicates they're expanding.
Right.
Or if they're not expanding, they're creating a tunnel to another underground facility. It has to be one or the other. But it's so close to the hub of this, I think they're expanding.
And where would the closest underground facility to this one called Perry be in North Carolina?
My guess would be it's the newest one, the one that we actually were aware of when it was being built. And that's the one beneath the Smoky Mountain National Park. And we have every reason to believe that there is a tunnel that connects those two. And sometimes you get your evidence in indirect ways. For example, the route that you would go from Perry to the Smoky Mountain facility goes along this mountain ridge. And we got reports from people that lived along that ridge who for X amount of time would feel and hear rumblings and vibrations beneath their homes. And it would only last for, a few days or a short amount of time, and it would stop. And so these underground boring machines can do about 7 miles per day. So I think each of these homes was experiencing that tunneling as it went beneath where they lived. So that's kind of one of the indirect indications that a tunnel has been built.
And why do you suppose they're tunneling from one underground facility to another? Would they be connected maybe with high speed like maglev trains?
Yeah, that's what we all believe. Yes, and we have seen there is a picture that's been on the available for many years now, and it shows one of these boring machines. It's bigger than any train you could imagine. It's obviously in a cylinder shape. And the people standing next to it look quite small. And so the ability to do these things is quite incredible. And yes, that's exactly what I think is connecting these various underground facilities. The man that I referenced, who had been with the Air Force, he absolutely said that there was a tunnel that connected the facilities up the northern part of Appalachia near Washington, D.C., that would connect all the way down to where we are here in North Carolina.
All right, we'll take one more time out. Mary, come back and discuss further. Mary Joyce is the founder and chief researcher at skyships.overcashiers.com. Stay with us.
Loose lips sink ships.
As you know, GetTheTea.com has been a sponsor of my show for quite some time. Their all-natural Life Change Tea with a unique blend of 12 herbs has helped many of you to keep your digestive tract clean and healthy. It's so easy. You just brew, steep, refrigerate, and drink. 1 to 2 glasses a day helps keep your insides clean. You shower on a daily basis, right? So why not shower your insides with this delicious herbal made in the USA tea that has helped thousands. GetTheTea.com is not a fad. They've been around for 14 years. It's an essential part of my life. My favorite is the pomegranate tea, and they're giving it to you for $8 off exclusively for my listeners. Why not make it an essential part of your life today? Go to getthetea.com/Richard. That's getthetea.com/Richard and save today. Remember, it's easy. Just brew, steep, refrigerate, and drink. Keep your gut healthy. They also carry an amazing variety of natural herbal supplements. Check them out at getthetea.com.
As you're staring up at the night sky, ever wonder who's staring back? You're listening to Richard Syrett's Strange Planet.
With Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
We are back with Mary Joyce. Check out the website, skyshipsovercashiers.com. It's always full value. So many great stories and photographs and satellite images from Google Earth and videos. And it's just a great collection of amazing, unbelievable stories of the unexplained. And one such is a giant, well, what appears to be a giant spacecraft on the ocean floor, captured once again using Google Earth. Mary, tell us all about it.
I want to give credit to anybody who gives me a lead, because mostly I go around with my Google Earth and just kind of explore, and occasionally I get lucky. But Scott Waring, who many of your people may know, discovered this circular object on the floor of the ocean. And he's the one that speculated that it might be a spacecraft. Well, needless to say, I decided to check it out for myself. And it's disc-shaped, and it has a dark outer ring, and it's about 5 miles in diameter. So we're talking about something big.
Wow.
And so I got the images, I enlarged them, I brightened them, and I was left wondering, what was I seeing? Because when I really blew it up, the interior part within this black ring actually looks like it might be transparent, because it looks like a continuation of the lines on, on either side of it. And I go, all right, what is this? Just one ring by itself and it's hollow in the middle? Or I don't know. It's just a big puzzlement. And you've seen the picture. Have you got a gut reaction to it?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it being transparent until you mentioned that. Yeah, it does look like, well, it's certainly, very spherical or round. And there is a solid blue, line around the outside. And then, as you say, it's transparent. Yes, you can see the bottom of the ocean floor, like the ridges or whatever it is on the ocean floor, right through the craft. So, yeah, is it a transparent UFO? I don't know.
To give your listeners a little bit better idea, these lines that go along this fractured ocean bottom kind of look like parallel tracks for a train.
Ah, yes, yes.
And so these parallel tracks can be seen in the center of this dark circle. And so that indicates you can see right through it. So it's either a ring that's totally just a ring itself, or I don't know. It left me with so many questions. And in the posting, I, as always, give the coordinates so people can copy and paste them into their own Google or search bar and look at these things for themselves. As you've heard me say many times, there are too many people creating bogus stuff out there. And that is the reason I am absolutely dedicated to giving people coordinates so they can find these things themselves and don't have to worry about being fooled.
And where is you do give the coordinates, and people can go to skyshipsovercashiers.com and click on this story about a giant spacecraft on the ocean floor and find the coordinates. But where do these coordinates take us on the globe? Where is this?
All right. If you have a map of South America, the large hump on the top, it would be on the ocean, Pacific Ocean, to the left or to the west of that continent. It's near where the Nazca lines are, which it kind of adds another twist to this. Could there be some kind of connection with that too? You just simply don't know for sure.
So this is off the coast of Peru.
Yes.
As you say, the home of the famous Nazca lines, which some people believe are of extraterrestrial origin.
So that that could be a connection. And when I've explored the coastline, including that on our west coast of the United States, I have found a number of ruins of very large facilities that are truly ancient, and they're on the ocean bottom floor, the ocean floor. So there's been a lot of activity in the past along the West Coast.
You could spend a lifetime, I would imagine, on Google Earth, just scouring the ocean floor itself, looking for and zooming in, looking for artifacts and objects that don't really belong there, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, and and sometimes I just take a few, a half hour out and just start scanning things. Let me tell you what I just found today. Haven't even posted it yet. It'll be next week before it ever gets up. But I found these two blood red blotches on Mars. And then there are two like railroad tracks that are parallel to each other. One's in a gold color and one is this blood red color. When I zoom in on that, on those blobs of color, it looks like there's been a deliberate cover up because you can see it's almost like brush strokes. So somebody's trying to cover something up. Why they would do that with red, I do not know. But then I just learned that this was in an area where scientists have said there would be water and ice. And so if we have a facility that already exists, or if we are planning to have one in the future, building it near a water source makes a whole lot of sense. So I'm tying all this together for an article that'll be a week away.
All right. Do you think we already have a base on Mars?
Absolutely.
Is it manned?
Absolutely. And one of the let's see, I'm going to go blank on names. A man in Israel who was in charge of space security for nearly 30 years, he went public in the Jerusalem Post, which is a very highly regarded newspaper, and said that, yes, we have, the Americans have a base up there or bases up there, and that they are interacting and working with the aliens. So when you get that kind of information coming from a man of his, credibility, you have to really, really believe that there is something definitely going on there. And I know you and I have talked about it in the past. I had used Google Earth and found two places, one in the northern hemisphere and one in the southern, that look like modern spaceports or space stations.
How often has this happened where you find something using Google Earth, you write down the coordinates, you zoom in, you look at it, and then when you go back later, it's been obliterated or it's gone?
That I try to get a picture as soon as I find something, because sometimes within a day of me posting it on the website, it gets messed up. They will either blur it out, or in one case when I found something in Antarctica, it literally looked like they took an ink bottle and just poured the ink over the location. So yes, that can be a problem.
What's your next project, Mary? You finished the Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints book. What are you working on now? Any plans for another book?
Right now, I just keep finding these things and putting them on the website. It's a big effort to do a book, and I have to decide if I want to do that or not. I could do something on just the little people stories that show that they still exist. When I initially got into this, I thought the stories were only from the past. So, that's certainly a possibility. I could do a book on all the things that I discovered using Google Earth. And I certainly encourage people to use the tool for themselves. It's amazing what you can find. Last fall, we found a number of sites in Antarctica where clearly ancient cities are starting to show up. And these have to be really, 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 really ancient, because that continent has been covered in ice for millions of years. So it's kind of like a cross between archaeology and detective work. And it's fun.
That would be a terrific book. Just a pictorial. All of the Google Earth images, which show something that shouldn't be there, some strange artifact, some modern-looking structure under the ice that's peeking through, with kind of a bit of a backstory or a description. You could fill volumes just with that alone.
Yeah. So there's possibilities. I just have to get my mindset on doing that, or just continue putting stuff on the website all the time. One or the other.
Do you continue to be approached by whistleblowers?
Every once in a while. It's the most recent one. Let's see. Oh yeah, I just remembered one. We probably don't have time to get into another one, do we?
Well, we've got a couple minutes. We've got 2 minutes.
All right. One man had read my book about underground bases, and he went on a camping vacation, and he spent some of his time at something called Mile High Campground, which is about as close as you can get to the secret facility that's been built beneath that ridge. And it's technically on the Great Smoky Mountain National Park property. And he was really very brave. He's walking around in the dark. He walked for about 13, 14 miles into the area above where this facility is. He found a ventilation vent that was kind of hidden back in the woods where he was exploring. During the time he was there, he could hear and feel machinery and stuff beneath the ground. He said it stopped completely at 5 o'clock. And I've heard this in another situation where you have to be there like at nighttime to catch it. And it's like they cut it off when most people are going to start getting up. And the 5 o'clock time has come up at least twice and at 2 different places. So I guess that's the most recent report I've gotten regarding underground bases.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing some more of those great Google Earth images up at skyshipsovercashiers.com. Mary, great work as always. Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Likewise. Mary Joyce. All right, that's it for me. My thanks to Carlos and Ryan. Back next week, we'll talk rock and roll mysteries with the rock and roll detective. In the meantime, don't be afraid. There's nothing concealed that won't be revealed, and nothing hidden that won't be made known. What you hear in the dark, speak in the light. What I say in a whisper, proclaim from the housetops. Move over, Aphrodite. I'm coming home. Good night.